Hello and welcome to today's yoga question. I am Lizzie Lasater, and joining us, speaking with us, inspiring us is the wonderful Erica Morton Magill. Hi, Erica.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Okay, today's question is, what does stillness mean in this moment of hyper connection?
I think that stillness can be incredibly confronting. I think that finding stillness and true quietude and non doing, non moving is incredibly triggering for those of us who are consistently doing, being, moving into practicing dynamically. Stillness can be very confronting. There is a Finnish artist, performance artist. Her name is Pilvi Taka. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but she has a performance that called The Trainee, in which she goes into an office and she's pretending to be a marketing intern. And she goes to her desk and she sits there. And all day long, she just sits with her hands folded and she just kind of stares off. And you can watch video of it online, and people will come up and say to her, what are you doing? She said, oh, I'm just doing brain work. I'm thinking. I have to do this in order to just get my head on straight. Or she'll ride the elevator up and down all day and just say, oh, it's part of my practice. And so her coworkers slowly, she goes from being quote unquote normal to being perceived as really weird. And people start avoiding her and saying terrible things because she's perceived as being too still, as not being productive. And so I think that stillness really can mean confronting expectations. It can be confronting what other people are asking of you and what you're needing of yourself in a very bold and courageous way. So I think it means setting aside the to-do list for just a moment, opting out of Instagram, maybe deleting it from your phone and seeing why you end up in your podcasts where Instagram used to be, right? What is it that we're seeking when we are constantly moving, when we're constantly putting our attention elsewhere? How do we bring that attention back to ourselves, to some sense of quiet?
Yeah, it's almost what this artist is describing is our suspicion that stillness is a little bit makes us uncomfortable or is suspicious
Yeah.
in and of itself, that
Yeah.
it's something not to be trusted. It's funny because my boys are almost 3,
Mm,
twins, and there is that mom thing where like if it's too quiet, I'm like, uh-oh. Like, what? And it's so many times
yeah.
I will kind of sneak in, rush in, look in, and they really just are like playing with Legos, but it's the
Yeah.
stillness, which, well, but they could be pouring something in the toilet. So my
Well, right.
rascals. Um, exactly. So this idea of hyper connection that
Yeah.
we're in this era where at the touch at your fingertips, not only are you connected to everyone on the planet, but you're connected also on a
Yeah.
Saturday afternoon when you're at the park with your kids. I'm connected to work. If someone
Yeah.
WhatsApps me, if you WhatsApp me to confirm this meeting, then I'm suddenly like, okay, I'm confirming with Erica. I don't want to be slow on that. And then let me open my calendar and let me put it in. And then let me it triggers often a kind of sense of a non-action or busyness or frantic anxiety, which is the opposite of stillness.
Yeah.
So how do you think about the relationship between stillness and this like connectivity, which to me is illustrated by the phone?
That's a really great image and a really interesting question because I think of the internet as sort of this collective nervous system that we have, right? Like we're all in tune with each other and we're all affecting each other with every move, with every like, with every picture that you look at but don't like. Right? Like everything that you do or don't do is impacting this larger network, this larger system, right? And so we do speak of it as a network. Yeah, this network that we're a part of. And so we're these individual organisms with their own nervous systems and networks, but we're also part of this larger collective network. And I think that we can tap into as individuals that larger network. And what we find there is frenetic, right? Like the collective network is not very well, I don't think. It is based on anger and fear. And really, they were designed that way, right? Social media was designed that way. And so when we tap into that, this sort of collective nervous system is dysregulated. And so I think one of the major tasks of our time is not to regulate the collective nervous system, but to regulate our own nervous system so that when we engage with that collective nervous system, we're at least this like little beacon of calm and still and repose, right? Of not hypervigilance, but regulation when we come into that
Oh, I
space.
really like that image of, okay, how am I going to take care of my nervous system? Almost like tune my own instrument so I can come and play
Yes.
the orchestra.
Yes,
And
exactly.
that if that tuning process is a daily, multiple times a day, it could take many, many moments of stillness. So what is your practical toolkit for stillness? What are some of the things that you go back to over and over again?
Yeah, like you said, it's something that we come back to every day. I mean, I think it's every time we touch our phone. How are you how are you engaging with this screen, which is really connecting you to the entire network? Like we have access, it's bonkers, what we have access to. So every time we touch our phone, how are we doing with that, with an embodied awareness and with a sense of calm and quietude rather than panic? Oh, I need to do this in order so that somebody else feels comfortable, so that it's all, or that I like ease my perfectionist mind, right? It's like, step back, take a breath before you do it. So, yeah, I think it's actually really challenging to do. Um, I bought a used copy of Jenny Odell's book, How to Do Nothing, Resisting the Attention Economy. I don't know if you've read it. It's a really fabulous read. And the very first line is the only line. So again, it was a used copy. The first line was the only one underlined, and it's underlined in green. And it says, nothing is harder to do than doing nothing. Right. And so clearly this other person also, I don't think it's just you and me, Lizzie, that struggle with this. I think it's very complicated. I think I've heard your mom say, does she call them speed bumps, like ways to slow down?
Yeah.
And check in with yourself. And one of the ways that I like to do that is when I notice that I'm sort of like, my energy is getting like really like amped up, I pause and I say, what is right in front of me that I wasn't noticing? So what it might be, it doesn't have to be visual, it can be sound or smell. But I think when we're hypervigilant, our other senses are not on board. And so what is right here that I just wasn't noticing, that I wasn't paying attention to? And in that moment, it's like everything else can sort of fall away as you hyper focus on something that isn't the panic, that isn't the network, that isn't causing this energetic agitation.
I think of it also as building in spaces in my day that are naturally phone free without much effort. Like almost, I just had the image of like those old fashioned armor suits that the knights would
Mm,
wear. And if you've ever been to an armor museum, because I had older brothers, so I've
yeah.
been to many armor museums. I remember one in London. There was like, they have the chainmail underneath,
Yeah.
right? And then the solid plates. So there was like, and then below that, I think there was like burlap or like cloth. So there was like multiple layers of protection. And so I sort of think about that when it's the full armor, the metal armor is on, to me is like I'm in airplane mode. Like I am
Mm,
not available for any incoming. And I use that in my mornings in my practice. It's like
yeah.
I am not, if at all, like 99% possible, if at all possible, like I don't go because I don't want to see that text from
Yeah.
somebody that's going to break
Yeah.
my heart or frustrate me or annoy
Yes.
me. I don't want to be available to the good or the bad because I want that 30 minutes on my yoga mat to be my own. And then often I will then right afterward try to do some piece of work that I'm resisting, like something I have friction to write something, like write my newsletter or to something creative. Like I'll just go straight from that. And so my armor's still on. I haven't joined the internet until later on. And then I do that consciously when I say like, okay, now I'm turning on things because I'm going to do email. And it might be 10 in the morning. It might be later in the day before I turn on WhatsApp because I work from home. So I have that easy
Yeah.
sort of control. And I also think of celebrating other pockets in my day when like I love to swim laps. So it's like, great,
Mm,
my phone's
mm,
in my bag, I'm swimming. Or even during dinner and stuff, like I'll often have my phone with me while I'm cooking dinner because I love to listen to a podcast or a timer for the spaghetti or whatever. But then I just like my standard is it's on silent anyway, which drives everyone in my life crazy, but it's on silent. And then it's like, it's in the kitchen for
yeah.
dinner.
Yeah.
Like it's a small thing, but and I still, it's harder for me to give it up at the bed at night. I go through phases, especially like I've just returned from Montana, and when I'm jet lagged,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
I need that 3 a.m. podcast hit. I just need it. I need it. Or if my kids have been sick or whatever, like if I'm woken up in the night a lot, then I like to have that to help me fall back asleep. But like, again, the kind of phone not in the bedroom would be another pocket, for example, where you're built in the retuning of the nervous system, that space
Totally.
of spaciousness. It's planned spaciousness where you are not available to incoming.
Yeah, I read something really interesting the other day that said, even if your phone is near you, like even if it's just sort of next to you and you can sort of see it, or it's like it within reach, it's giving you this anxiety that like you might be missing what's happening on there. So there's this idea that even if you're in conversation with like somebody else and you're there in person together, if you can see your phone, you're more
Mhm.
distracted than if it were just in your bag,
I
because
believe that.
just its presence is amplifying your attention and distracting you. And so yeah, I do keep my phone out of the bedroom at night, which isn't available to all people, right? That's something also to recognize. Some people, need to be on call, or some people have partners away or children, in another house, and they need to be always on. So I recognize that. I also, speaking to what you're talking about not being available, I have several different positions that I work in. And so I have a practice of, in my emails, I will go in and turn off emails for certain things. So I'll turn off, I work for a company called Higher Ground, and I'll go in and I'll turn off Higher Ground until I'm in my office hours for Higher Ground, so that it isn't like a constant stream of emails. It's like, here's time dedicated. So I'm creating a container. And I think that's what you're speaking to, is sort of bounded time in which to focus on something. And I find that really freeing and really helpful to have containers in which to work, for specific folks.
Totally. And I even really do that. It's like heretical to admit, but I sort of do that with my WhatsApps too. Like I look at them in the morning on the computer, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to do these 6 messages, period.
Yeah.
And then I won't check my WhatsApp until hours later, unless I'm like meeting a friend and trying to, but like, I consider it like, this is not urgent.
Yeah. But I think what we're speaking to is that it really is a practice, and it really is a
Yeah.
discipline, right? You really have to effortfully do these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least I do, because it is
Yeah.
really easy to always be on and always be scrolling and always want to perform, right? To help yourself sort of feel a part of something. And it really takes practice to just say, like, the world will not explode if I don't answer this email for 1 day or 2 days.
Well, and what you spoke to as well is that sense of getting revved up, that I think we have to admit to ourselves that hustle, that feeling of getting everything done, like tack, 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 being snappy with things, that has a certain attraction, a certain inner buzz. And there is that our nervous system is designed also to enjoy that form of stimulation, that little dopamine hit. It's happening too often.
Yeah.
Like the number of emails you get, it's just too often.
Yes.
All right, as we close this topic, first of all, thank you so much for speaking with us. It's such a pleasure to get a little window into your brain. What do you think, what is for you real stillness?
Stillness for me is that sense of my body being the same temperature as the air outside. It's that space where I can sort of feel myself melting, and I don't have to be anything or anyone. Nobody's asking for snacks or tugging at my shirt. And it's that moment of everything is okay, all is well, like all the tasks we were just speaking at, I think in the previous conversation, like it's enough, all is well. And I can shut my brain down for a few moments. That stillness for me is just quiet repose. And it's really not admitting, like, that's really hard for me. Stillness is really hard.
I think that's part of the human condition. I would define it as, what came to mind as you were speaking is, I love the idea of the skin and the air temperature. Or the body and the air temperature. I love thinking of it like it's when my brain, my heart, and my belly are in the same place at the same time.
Mm,
Like we're all here, that
Yeah.
stillness. We're not like doing all the things all at once. Like
Yeah.
my heart is having an argument with my husband and my brain is planning my newsletter and my belly's thinking about dinner. It's like,
Yeah, that's so beautiful too, because that really is the pose of Shavasana, right? Is like head, heart, belly all in one line, right? And you can really sort of metaphorically and physically just be aligned, be at ease.
So tell us where we can find you on the internet.
Yeah. My website is yogafolk.co, and my newsletter, which I send every Friday-ish, sometimes every other Friday, is yogafolk.blog.
Okay. And when are we going to get to read your dissertation on Savasana? Is that going to be publicly available or?
That's a great question. It's I turn it in 7th of September, so it's coming up really quick. And yeah, I mean, it will be publicly available because it's a thesis, but I'm happy to share it with anyone who is curious. So just send me an email, hello@yogafolk.co, if you want to see a copy of that.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you. That's so generous.
Yeah.
I am here to be found on the internet at Lizzie, Lizzie.yoga. And you can link to the best place to stay in touch is my Rest with Lizzie Lasater newsletter.
Which is wonderful, and I've enjoyed so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's really lovely.
Yeah, likewise.